Hey all, so this is War 6, and as seems to happen at least once per season lately, we are up against our friends at 4 Loki. So, it's always a great war. They always seem to have one of their best of the season against us. We know that we need to play very tight if we want to win. So we're starting out against this Morningstar. She applies bleeds on physical hits. And so the fact that Doom's basics are almost entirely energy means that we shouldn't take any bleeds on us. Which normally I kind of ignore her bleeds unless her attack value is very high and just let willpower take care of it. But because this node has that heal block, it would really start adding up. And so it's much better to just use somebody who either doesn't cause the bleed or is immune to it and just bypass that particular problem. So it's not going to be the fastest Doom fight. I probably should have just thrown this special 2 here, because that would do a ton of damage. And also, we're not really pushing her to high power here, because I just decided I didn't want to mess with her special 2. It's not like the most dangerous thing in the world. I almost never miss that dex, but if you miss it in war after you've just procced the dex buff from the first 2 beams, it can really, really hurt. So, safety first. I'm willing to take a slower Doom fight. I should also mention that Morningstar's signature ability is reducing the effectiveness of my Fury. Notice that right after the special 3, she actually procced her own in response, and so we were able to nullify that and gain some power from it. But because of that, I just shouldn't have gone for the special 3. Yeah, I should have done this with 2 special 2s, maybe even 1 just would have done it, but 2 definitely would have been the faster way to go through there. Not the end of the world. That's kind of the nice thing about Doom, is that if you mess up his rotation, it usually means that you have some kind of power steal, and so you can quickly get to where you want to be. But yeah, could have been a little cleaner. So then we head in against this Spider Ham, and Killmonger is just one of his best counters anywhere. This particular node means that we're not going to be doing quite as much bleed damage all the time, but really all we're focusing on here is getting him to a bar of power and baiting it so that we have true strike up, and then we're just going to spam special 1s, because we want to keep his spider nonsense relatively low, and we want to knock him down to get the Fury, and then just hit him while we have reverb and true strike up. So his taunt does really harsh our vibe here, because I talked about this in one of my recent videos, but I'm pretty sure from my testing that Spider-Ham's taunt applies its attack reduction after all of your attack boosts multiplicatively, so it's very significant, and it really slows down a lot of the ways that you try and kill him quickly. See, here I do let Spider Nonsense build a little bit because I didn't want to push him to his special 2. Not the end of the world, because most of our damage is basics, not specials, but just pointing out that I could have backed off before I got to a bar, and it wouldn't have even climbed that high if I just waited for him to throw the special 1 first. But one way or another, even though he takes much longer to kill than his health pool would suggest, it's still a relatively quick fight, because Killmonger is able to stay on him all the time, regardless of whether he has his evade abilities or not, is able to easily knock him down without causing problems to get that big Fury and keep the protection off, and just very, very safe fight. Bait the special 1, punish it. So then we have a fight that I have never taken on Power Snack before. So I've said before, I do think that Reed can take almost anyone here, with or without Defiance. And Apocalypse is not an exception, but he's also someone I hadn't taken before. So I was trying to be really careful for this. It did occur to me that I might take more block damage than normal, because normally the way that, or one of the ways that Reed takes less damage on this node, is that you can just allow the specials to trigger your evade on their own. You can just block them and you don't have to do anything fancy. And I know that if that happens against Apocalypse, he'll reduce my future evade chance. But funnily enough, I'm also just not evading, so Not really the biggest deal. I am dexing out at the end. If we did not have Defiance, that would be giving him some extra power, but because we got to our first special 2 so quickly, it would be almost nothing, which is why I say Reed can do this with or without that global. You can see we are now fully ramped. We've gained 4 bars of power. He just gained his 3rd. So there the evade does trigger, and I was caught off guard by his quick lights. So that's on me. That's also why I used the indestructible in case taking a new opponent here led to something weird. So definitely glad I did that. As I've said before, I tend to overboost and overprep for new fights, even if I'm confident I know how they should go, and this one was no exception. So interesting placement with the rank 4 Apocalypse for sure, but ultimately not a problem for Reed, and I don't think it would be a problem for a rank 3 Reed either. You would just have to hit him for a little bit longer after this special 3, maybe even throw 2 special 3s. But any fight against a rank 4 Apocalypse that takes less than 2 minutes is a successful one in my book. So then we move on to this rank 4 Ebony Maw. TJ's a friend. We've talked about, Ebony Maw and Purgatory and enjoying those weird mystic champions, but I knew that this one was going to be tricky. So I'm leaving in one of these duels just to show you that dueling Ebony Maw is really absolutely miserable, because a single degen trigger will not kill you in war, and it won't even happen because we have Defiance, and so there won't be a buff to nullify, but it just ends the duel very quickly. I always do it just to make sure I'm good on his animations, remember where things are, but it's just not a fun experience. Anyway, cut out about 30 seconds there of the server deciding that it wanted to cooperate. Go ahead and throw on this regen boost, because I don't think invulnerability really helps in this one. I'm not expecting to get hit. Basically, if something goes wrong, it's because I've hit into his falter and triggered that degen, and so hopefully if I make that mistake, it's early enough that the regen helps me out. Also, the regen is going to mitigate the block damage we take early on, and we'll be okay that way. So that really surprised me right there. I was not expecting to get hit by that heavy. I don't think I was trying to counter it. So something weird happened there with inputs, but it's okay. We're ready for it. There, I had the problem, which I've talked to some of y'all about before, which is that I just cannot re-parry very well if I'm unstoppable. And so luckily that time I didn't back up and then throw the heavy, which is what has happened a couple times in the past, but I still did get hit, so not ideal. Anyway, our goal here is to heavy counter as many special ones as possible, because that is the easiest place to do the evade. We had time there. I probably should have heavy countered it, but I was just trying to play this super safe. I know I can wait out the falters. I know that every time it triggers on me, I'll gain power for more indestructible charges, more counterpunch. It will give me tools as long as I'm careful. And basically, the way that this can go wrong is if I had gone for a heavy right there, and I hadn't knocked him down before falter showed up, and so I missed and took that big degen. If that happens once or twice, and then maybe he hits you with something, that's where this fight gets out of hand. And so I'm just being super careful, and I'm not throwing heavies after a couple special ones where I'm pretty sure I could get away with it. But you will also notice that after that last one, because I didn't counter with the heavy, I didn't get true strike up, and so I did trigger a couple of evades, had enough awareness to not get punished for them, but small mistake there. The thing that makes a rank 4 Ebony Maw dangerous here is that if this were a rank 3, the fight would already be over. And notice that he's at 78 of those persuasion charges. Because he's a rank 4 and we have not finished this yet, he is going to get to 100 and go into Black Tongue. And when Ebony Maw goes in Black Tongue, knocking him down no longer avoids his falter. So once that happens, you just have to play around it. But that's okay. Killmonger has controlled the fight so well at this point that if we just get one more bleed in, if we just get a couple more hits in, the fight will be over, and this will have been a success. And there we go. 2 bleeds, fight's done. Now, you could also use Captain America would be great here. I would also heavy counter the special ones. The thing is, Captain does not have True Strike, so you would also need to throw in some medium-light combos in there to get around Mixmaster. Still very doable. Class Advantage would work great for you. Those would definitely be my 2 favorites, because anyone else, I think you're going to start feeling the Mixmaster, and it is going to get in the way of you controlling the falter, and he's potentially going to go into Black Tongue, and then you'll have those difficulties that we talked about. But as long as you're using a Defiance champion or somebody who otherwise controls Ebony Maw, not the worst fight, but definitely scarier with a rank 4 because it just lasts longer. And like I said, that's when his abilities get more dangerous. So, good rank up, TJ, but glad that it did not catch me this time. So then we move on to my second Doom fight here, which is this Nova. Pretty easy fight for Doom, honestly. Like, you can potentially go for the Intercept because you're probably keeping his Furies under control and therefore keeping him from going unblockable, and also keeping him from being able to parry you. Because remember, that's not something that can happen while his charges are low, and every time you nullify a Fury, he loses charges. So you can get the Intercept with Doom, but it's also not worth, forcing, and you're going to see why in a second. So I go ahead and go for this. I was kind of hoping maybe the special one landed in a way that would get me the Intercept. I'm not entirely sure what happened there, but clearly I got caught. It is what it is. I was hoping he would throw that special one, and then I would be able to go for the Intercept there. Clearly, I got saved by Stand Your Ground, which is why I run it, because sometimes when the AI throws random heavies, you may not have time to react. Oh well. So it would have been nice to get an Intercept before this special 3, but you'll see that it does enough damage, even with the 1 Fury with protection up, that because we're running power back boosts, we're going to be in a really good spot after this, and we're just going to be able to chain these special 3s. So I could have played this a little bit better with exactly where my mediums go. I could have pushed him to 3 bars of power before I threw the special one. But as you're seeing, because we're using power back boosts and because he has buffs to nullify and feed Mystic Dispersion, like I said, it doesn't matter. We're able to get up to our special 3 again. This fight is also an excellent showcase of why I value Mystic Dispersion 5 so much with Doom, because if you are used to it, it just gives you more ammo for everything else he does. So made a point to counter his medium and punish that, because that's a safe opening as long as you're fast enough. Baited out the special 1. If he had just come in and hit our block again, we would have thrown the special 3 immediately before he threw the special 1, but what happened also works. And we're just maintaining our 2 Furies here. Like, even with the protection up, we're doing tons of damage. The special 3s are hitting really hard. We could try to intercept him with an unblockable special 2, and that would drop the protection, but the special itself would do less damage because of how Nova interacts with unblockable attacks, and it would probably send him unblockable, so that just didn't feel worth it to me. You can do that. It would then lead to a spike in damage after the intercept, but I just decided not to mess with it and keep cycling special 3s, because that was very clearly working. So we move on to Killmonger versus Mojo. This is just going to be, it's an intercept node, right? Killmonger has Defiance, so Mojo can't place buffs on us. We have Counterpunch, so we're going to get easy intercepts. That's all there is to this. The only other thing that we have to watch for is, let's make sure that through prompts or something else, we don't send Mojo to a special 3, because he will still get the power gain when he completes prompts, even if we don't have to worry about the hater buffs triggering on us. And let's make sure that if he gets a special 2 through the same means, we don't go for the dex, mess it up, and eat that degen, because that will still hurt. That's not reliant on buffs. That just applies if you get hit. But that's basically all we have to worry about. Mojo's Special 1 does some weird things, so you will see me block a few of them here rather than just do full dexes. I'm fairly confident with the full dex, but I am intentionally taking it on block a couple times here just to make sure that I'm dexing late rather than early, because if you dex too early, sometimes you can get hit and eat like 6 hits of it, actually eat them, instead of just blocking a couple of them. So electing for that every time. And also baiting out specials over getting the intercept sometimes, but there I decided to go for it. His health is low enough that I figure, okay, I can probably just block this special too, and it's not the end of the world. I don't really want to get backed up in the corner, because then we have to block all of it like that. So got a little bit annoyed there. And I think that experience with getting backed up is why I decided to go ahead and push him to the special 2 here, which of course he immediately throws. Because if he hadn't done that, if we'd been able to block and just hold it, then the bleed would have finished him off. But he does a little bit of block damage just as a parting shot. It's okay, we don't have any more Killmonger fights. But I would expect no less. So then we move on to this Guillotine 2099. I cut the recording there for a few minutes while I was waiting for JT to come in and place a House of X pre-fight here. He actually had rank 4 Doom this war, but I was boosted and he was not, and so that's why I'm taking it here. You see JT heading back in to make sure it shows up, because notice the icon isn't on the map. But in my experience, if the diamond shows up in the icons there, and if when you click on the nodes it says guidance boost, I've never had that fail. I have heard of that failing once for somebody else, but I've never had that fail. So that made me confident enough to go in. We are going to go for some re-parries here, because we don't really want to deal with the special 1. We want our power. But the other thing that I want to talk about with this fight is that other than the last one, I threw on an invuln because I was like, I am going to do something wrong. I haven't taken this fight before, I'm going to do something wrong, and I'm really going to want that invulnerability over getting it rolling faster, some regen. And I was correct, because I dexed right before throwing that special 3 when I did not need to. I could have just blocked that, I could have waited, I could have thrown the special 3, and I would not have triggered the global. So that's something that I need to pay more attention to next time. This is kind of the drawback of how many fights I've been taking with Defiance characters, is that I just do not have as much experience with the global. That's why that happened. But that's also why we use the invulnerability boost. Because as long as you know before you head into the fight what the possible dangers are, how you're most likely to screw up, and you plan accordingly for the uh-oh, that just happened moments, then the uh-oh, that just happened moments are, I'm glad I boosted that way, and not, oh my god, I hope I don't die. So very happy with how that went. This special 2 does finish her off. I was confident in that, wasn't worried about it, needing the incinerates to tick down and hoping she didn't throw the special 3. But also, we still had 2 charges left on the invulnerability, so if the special 2 had not finished her, the incinerates would have, even if she threw a special 3 and we tanked another one beforehand. So very safe fight with Doom. We had also had that marked for Captain America with the House of X pre-fight. Would have also been extremely safe, because it wouldn't have given her any debuffs and triggered Conflictor. But this just worked out better, because as you can see, I was boosted through all of these at once. And now we have Stryfe here. I gotta admit, I'm not entirely sure what the goal was with this one. I mean, Stryfe does have block penetration, and there is Aspect of Evolution on here, which increases his attack and his block penetration. As his combat rate goes up from Aspect of Evolution, he's going to be throwing more special 1s, and therefore we're going to have to wait out more invisibilities. If I was using somebody like Miguel here, who only controls ability power rate, well, Stryfe doesn't have any ability power, so Miguel would have to deal with all the specials. But the flip side of Stryfe not having any ability power is that the slightly weaker ability power control of Reed isn't a drawback. And the suppressions become much more powerful because we're about to be fully ramped and he's only gained 2 bars. That's why we're sticking to heavies so much. Because remember, I've talked before about how I always run the Petrify Mastery maxed. So if I'm only hitting him during the stuns with my heavies, then he's gaining even less power. We're getting that 30% on top of the suppressions. And so there's very little uptime on the invisibility. He's only getting his last bar of power here right at the end where the willpower reversal finishes him off. So I'm thinking that maybe that was an anti-Miguel placement, because he is so common on that node, and 4Loki knows that and didn't ban him, so I think they were trying to make some of the key nodes that he can take more difficult. Definitely successful in that, but if you have somebody without strong ability power gain there, then I think that Reed just becomes incredibly strong because the suppressions just let you bypass aspect of evolution, as you saw there. Anyway, as always, it was a very interesting war to plan and then to go through. Lizer always has a good defense for me, and she and Taters planned out a great offense, of course, against ours. We did have 2 really weird bugged deaths where something was going on with the dexterity mastery. Like the buff just was not triggering, and I think it was causing some dexes to fail, which is obviously a huge problem if you discover that bug on Quake fights, as we did. So not entirely sure what happened there, but that accounts for 2 of our deaths, even if you take those away. 4Loki beat us with only 2 deaths. Other than the 2 potential input ones, we had 3 overall, and they just played incredibly, incredibly cleanly. Like, it's very, very hard to beat 2 deaths. They are on fire this season. It was fun as always. We'll go get our wins elsewhere. So good luck to them for the rest of this season. And I think this is also a good point to make sure that everyone is aware of all of the other YouTubers involved here. So I'm not going to try and list all of the ones from 4Loki. Thankfully, most of them have channels larger than mine, and they're all excellent. Check them out if you are not aware of them. Lizer herself has an amazing war channel. But we also had a bit of a reorganization at SSx this last offseason, as I've mentioned before, and so I have a few in my battle group that you may not have heard me talk about before. There's JT and Stranz, who were in my BG last season. Both of them I've been playing with for a very long time. Stranz has a fantastic Spider-Man 2099 gameplay and also some other interesting attackers. JT is an artist with his rank 4 Penny Parker, and his videos are very, very funny. I would encourage you to look at both of those. And then we also have a few new ones. So Amanda was at SSx last season, but in Battle Group 1. She has a really solid channel with war fights. She has a rank 4 Omega Red. Just really, really great player. We also brought in Bryce, who has rank 4 Kingpin, rank 4 Overseer, and is very, very good with Hood. I'm sure this particular war, where he took the Cersei boss with Hood, will be making an appearance. So I'll be linking all of those in the description. And if you're on the hunt for some more war gameplay, then be sure to check those out. I think you'll enjoy it. But until next time, thanks so much for watching, and take care.